Imagine losing your one car, your home, your retirement, all your businesses, all your money, and getting sued 8 times, all within a few months. What would you do? Now, I don't have to imagine what this is like because this is exactly what happened to me. Yet following this, in a 2.5-month period, I closed over $100,000 in sales, working 3 hours a day in an industry I had zero previous experience in. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly how I did this in 4 strategies. And make sure you subscribe so every time I come out with fresh content, you are notified. Hey everyone, this is Seth Keeping It Real. I grew my last company to over 30 million within a 2-year period. My company took on an army of clients. Our expenses skyrocketed, COVID hit, the supply chain and shipping costs wreaked havoc on the company's cash flow. Clients angry about the delays sued us 4 times in federal court, 2 times in state court, and 2 times in small claims court. My company could not sustain the supplier delays, along with the monthly operating costs of over $300,000 and the legal fees. So my company went down in flames, filing Chapter 7. I owned no home. The one rental property that I had purchased with my own personal funds way back in 2018, I had sold and given most of the capital gains to the company to try to keep it going so it could complete its service to its clients. I had no retirement. I had liquidated my wife's and my 401k fund of $55,000 and deposited that into the business in an effort to keep it going as well. I had no leftover Amazon income. Too busy leading a team who was building 978 Amazon stores for clients, I had stopped my own Amazon store and put my remaining Amazon reserves of $40,000 into the company to try to save it. Even my one car belonged to the company, so after the company closed, I purchased a bicycle. The plaintiff's lawyer persuaded my bank to freeze my personal account, leaving me with no option to buy groceries. So I started selling my own furniture just to pay for food. But even after my bank account was unfrozen, I ran out of money. Utility bills were bouncing, and if that wasn't enough, my sewer system clogged and flooded my master bathroom. I even asked the trustee of the bankruptcy to hire a forensic accountant team to go through all of my company and my personal finances and see if there had been any wrongdoing, just to show the clients coming after us that I had hurt myself financially trying to make their Amazon store successful. So the forensics were hired and they spent months going through all of the data and came up with nothing. No fraud, no deception. COVID took my company down. But in their magnanimous spirit of generosity, the lawyers persuaded their clients that I was hiding money under a rock in the backyard, so they continued to pursue me legally. And I could not afford to fight the lawsuits, so I ended up filing personal bankruptcy as well. At this point, I was flat out of money. I mean, in order to live, I needed to find a way to make money, and I had to make it fast. And I had zero interest in returning to a 9-to-5. I didn't have time to build a company because I had lost everything. I needed to find a way to make a lot of money in a very short amount of time. So I began to scour the earth for options, but came up with nothing. One day I was on 6th Street, a ministry I'd started where we share the gospel with people who are hurting. And I ran into this couple who had just moved into town. They were looking for a church and so happened to run a roofing company. They said they were looking for people who could help them sell roofs and manage the replacement process with the insurance companies. And after looking into what they offered and needed, of all the options I looked at, this would be the fastest path to cash. But there was one glaring problem. How do you make money in an industry that you have zero previous experience in? And I didn't have time to learn. So I made a very difficult decision. I will learn by doing. I dove in headfirst. And that brings me to the first of the 4 strategies. Strategy number 1, be willing to learn as you do instead of before you do. I went to training sessions, I started watching podcasts. I created a list of terms with definitions. I filled up this huge Google Doc with everything I could digest. I even set up my own CRM since I couldn't afford to pay for one. And every day on my drive to South Austin to knock on doors, I role-played out loud selling the roof to the homeowner to get myself prepared. Now, of all these activities, the number one most important action I took that helped me learn lightning fast was doing it. Knocking on doors, talking to homeowners, calling insurance companies, writing up contracts. Nothing in life will teach you faster than straight up experience. Now, most people today, especially in America, approach a new project like this. First, I need to get trained. Then I need to get everything set up perfectly. Then I need to think about it a little more, and then I'll start. Well, I didn't have that luxury. I needed to eat. But then I encountered a severe challenge. You see, when you sell a new roof paid for by the homeowner's insurance company, it takes 2 to 3 months to get paid. Now, sales are great for making a lot of money, but I wasn't going to operate too well if I had to wait 60 to 90 days just to eat. And that brings me to strategy number 2. Pool your expenses. My family and I pulled a card from Asian and Hispanic culture by pooling all of our expenses. Let's say you have family who live nearby, and you are all struggling to make ends meet. Instead of everyone living in their own house, paying their own separate mortgage, and footing their own utility bills, you find one place for everyone to live, and you pool your combined expenses, and you can cut your living costs in half. Now, I know it doesn't sound very independent, but it's just plain smart if you have the grace and humility to all be sardined into one place. But there was another issue. If you make just enough to pay for your living expenses, what happens when you lose your job? What happens when an unexpected medical emergency falls on top of you? Not only that, but I did not want to make money selling roofs and then spend that money selling roofs so that next month I'm making more money selling more roofs. I mean, 5 years down the road, I would end up exactly where I started. That is not progress, that's stagnance. Robert Kiyosaki calls that the rat race. I needed to find a way to cover my living expenses while reducing debt and growing assets at the same time. Because my previous coaching company was an LLC, and because it made a lot of money before COVID started destroying the supply chain, I was still on the hook for the company's income tax. Income tax on money that never entered my bank account. Welcome to sole proprietorships and LLCs. The tax liability passes through to you even if the income never does. So this left me with a little IRS debt of $146,701. Now, there is a solution to this, and that brings me to strategy number 3. Have each person who lives with you generate independent income. You see, everyone shares in the expenses, but everyone makes their own money. This is cool because it reduces your costs while expanding your revenue at the same time. So my wife and each of my adult children living with me went out and got their own jobs. Their combined income paid the bills. And then anything I made selling roofs was income above our living costs, income I used to pay down debts and eventually will use to build assets that someday will make us money passively. Now, when you start a new venture whose income completely depends on your success, instead of a consistent and predictable paycheck coming in every other week, one of the biggest struggles is this question: how do I decide what to do every day? Because there's billions of things you could do, so I have to narrow it down to the most important actions. And that brings me to the 4th strategy. Decide what minimum daily goals you must achieve in order to reach your desired financial outcome. Here's how you do it. You start with your ultimate goal and ask the question, well, how much money do I want to make? And then you work backwards from that goal to determine the actions you need to take with relentless consistency to reach that goal. Now, I knew my goal. I wanted to sell a minimum of 2 roofs per week. And I knew by talking to other roofers that if I conducted at least 10 roof inspections, which are free, it's where you go and inspect the homeowner's roof per week, this would result in at least 2 roof sales. So that meant all I needed to do was do 2 roof inspections per day. Now, when you approach something mathematically, it is so much easier to motivate yourself because now you have a tangible goal to fight for. And even though you might not get paid for a few months, there's a mental satisfaction when you achieve your preset daily goal. So every morning I rose up at 5 a.m., I drove to South Austin and I started knocking on doors, talking to strangers, and I would not go home until I had given at least 2 roofing inspections. Some days I got 2 inspections after knocking on only 8 doors. Other times I didn't get 2 roof inspections until I knocked on 54 doors. But it didn't matter. I didn't get to go home until I got my 2 inspections. And after 2.5 months of doing this, I closed $103,360 in sales. And guess what? It only took me an average of 3 hours a day, working 5 days a week, which freed me to spend the rest of my time building a new business. You know, before I go, I want to include a 5th strategy. Because even if you follow the first 4 down to the last letter, they won't do anything for you unless you implement strategy number 5. Do it, even when you don't feel like it. There were days where I hated knocking on doors. Some people yelled at me. I'll never forget this one guy who turned out to be mentally insane. He was literally putting on brass knuckles while I was talking to him. I thought he was gonna swing at me. And this was all during the height of Austin summer. I mean, some days breaking 100 degrees. One day reached 108 degrees Fahrenheit while I'm knocking on doors. Even when you hate it, don't stop. Self-discipline beats intelligence and skill every single time. Look, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care what business school you graduated from. I don't care how many magna cum laudes you have on your graduation certificate. If you don't have self-discipline, you will join the myriads of people content to live an average life. But here's the good news. You may not be able to change your IQ, that's fine. You may not be able to modify your genetics, no problem. And you may not even have time or money to go to get a business degree today. But you can learn self-discipline.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, I put together 8 strategies for people who suck at sales. And it will show you how to become very good at sales. Even if this isn't your career path, but you want to learn how to generate a lot of income in a short amount of time, if you click the link below, you'll be invited into a community where I'll provide this for you, costs nothing. And it's a bunch of tips and strategies on how to become really good at sales. This can actually help you not just in sales, but in being more persuasive, and more articulate, and more confident, and how to communicate.